and many other...
This is right, Arab.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Olly Barratt, and in this bulletin we'll bring you an update on stories developing around the world. For years, Hong Kong's pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily has been a staunch critic of Beijing, and after months of crackdowns by the authorities, the newspaper has been forced to shut down. It'll print its last edition on Thursday. The closure of Apple Daily intensifies international questions about Hong Kong's press freedom. We will bring you more on that later, but first, let's take a look at our top headlines. Iranian state media claims a sabotage attempt against a building belonging to the country's atomic energy agency has been foiled. The broadcaster said there was no loss of life or damage to property. Hong Kong's pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily says that it will print its last edition on Thursday. The newspaper says the decision was based on employee safety and manpower considerations. The Delta Plus variant of COVID-19 is now a variant of concern, according to India's health ministry. Authorities have been directed to take up containment measures in 3 states. A Swedish court strikes down Chinese telecom giant Huawei's plea, challenging the banning of its equipment in the Swedish tender for its 5G rollout. No alcohol, no hugs, no cheers, no autographs. Tokyo Olympic organisers unveiled tough new rules for spectators at the pandemic games as they mark a month until the opening ceremony. Climate change impacts could hit sooner than feared, even if humans can contain the planet-warming greenhouse gas emissions. That's according to a landmark draft report from the UN's climate science advisors obtained by AFP. Hong Kong's pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily has announced that it will print its last edition on Thursday. This after it was raided by police and its tycoon owner and other staff were arrested under a new national security law. The end of the 26-year-old tabloid has raised alarms over media freedom and other rights in the city. The paper's publisher, Next Digital, says that due to the prevailing circumstances in the city, Apple Daily will have to shut up shop. Police last week froze assets of companies linked to the newspaper and arrested 5 executives. Today, police arrested a columnist of the paper on suspicion of conspiring to collude with a foreign country or foreign forces. Hong Kong authorities have said dozens of Apple Daily pieces may have violated the security law. Rights groups, media organisations and Western governments have criticised last week's police raid on the newspaper. It had come under immense pressure after its owner, Jimmy Lai, was arrested last August. The tycoon had been one of the biggest supporters of Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement. Our next story now, and the number of coronavirus cases in India is dipping. On June the 22nd, the number of daily cases reported were below 50,000 for the first time in 3 months. While the second wave of coronavirus, for which the Delta variant was primarily responsible, does show some signs of continuing to fade away. Authorities in India are bracing themselves for another potential threat, the Delta Plus variant.
The Delta variant was behind the devastating second wave of COVID-19 pandemic in India. And just as the number of COVID cases begin to decline, India has another reason to worry: the Delta Plus variant. A mutant of the Delta version, the Delta Plus is technically named B.1.61721 or AY.1. The mutant, which was first detected in Europe in March this year, has become a serious cause of concern for authorities in India. India's Health Ministry has classified the Delta Plus variant as a variant of concern. The decision comes after a consortium of 28 laboratories of India's Health Ministry involved in genome sequencing said that the mutated virus has 3 worrying characteristics: increased transmissibility, stronger binding in receptors of lung cells, and potential reduction in antibody response. India currently has nearly 40 cases of the Delta Plus variant in states of Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. The state of Maharashtra, one of the worst hit states by COVID-19, reported most cases of the Delta Plus variant and is now bracing itself for a potential deadly outbreak. Centre has directed the 4 states to take up immediate containment measures to curb the spread. The Delta Plus variant has not just sparked concerns in India but in other countries as well. It has been detected in 9 other countries including China, United States, United Kingdom and Russia. Experts fear the Delta Plus variant could potentially trigger a third wave in India if it is not contained now. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel has received the Moderna COVID-19 jab as her second dose. That's after receiving a first dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. It makes her the first global leader that we know of, at least, to receive a vaccine cocktail. A growing number of countries are now exploring this very option. Vaccine cocktails involve administering different vaccines for the first and second doses. Several medical studies are underway to test the efficacy of switching vaccines in this way, but several countries have already given it a nod to using vaccine cocktails under special circumstances. Here in Britain, for example, an Oxford University-led study tested the mixing of AstraZeneca with Pfizer. It said that people who mixed these 2 vaccines developed milder post-vaccination symptoms than those who received the same doses. And in January in the UK, officials allowed people to be given a different vaccine for a second dose on extremely rare occasions, for example, if the first vaccine was out of stock. Spain is also giving those under the age of 60 the option to get a second dose of either AstraZeneca or Pfizer. A study by Spain's state-backed Carlos III Health Institute found that giving a dose of Pfizer's shot to people who've already received a first shot of AstraZeneca's vaccine is safe and highly effective. France's top health advisory body says people injected with a first shot of the AstraZeneca vaccine should receive a second dose with a so-called messenger RNA vaccine like those made by Pfizer or Moderna. But this was only for people under the age of 55. However, such dose mixing has not yet been evaluated in trials in France. Nordic countries, including Norway and Sweden, have also made similar announcements. While Finland has adopted a similar strategy, it was primarily driven due to concerns over vaccine availability. In Canada, officials said that people inoculated with the AstraZeneca jab may be offered a second dose of another vaccine. This is a move based firstly on supply concerns around the AstraZeneca shot, and secondly on safety concerns due to a rise in incidents of rare blood clots. In the United States, the CDC has updated its guidance. That was back in January on vaccine cocktails. That allows a mix of Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna shots with a gap of at least 28 days. But this is only for exceptional situations in the country. Speculation about the relocation of the Euro 2020 semi-finals and finals from Wembley Stadium due to England's COVID travel restrictions have been put to rest. This after the British government and UEFA reached an agreement. UEFA, the European football governing body, had earlier sought changes to allow thousands more overseas fans to attend the deciding games. The agreement, however, did mention that the number of fans will be allowed for the 3 games at a raised capacity from what we've been seeing at Wembley so far during the tournament. Discussions have also been continuing about exactly how hundreds of VIPs will be exempted from full quarantine restrictions that other international travellers face when visiting the UK. That is a deeply controversial idea here in Britain. Now, German Chancellor Angela Merkel had said that she hoped UEFA would act responsibly and said she didn't think it was a good idea to see packed stadia here in Britain at the time when cases of COVID-19 continue to rise. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi had also said that he believed the Euro 2020 finals should not be held in London and volunteered Italy.
On matches in Britain. Britain is a variant zone. This means anyone travelling from Britain must quarantine themselves for 14 days. There are very few exceptions, and I think, or rather, I hope, that UEFA will act responsibly.
Yes, I advocate that the final should not take place in a country in which the risk of infection is growing fast.
So, for now, the Euro 2020 semi-finals and finals will stay here in London. And as per the new agreement, Wembley will be allowed to host more than 60,000 fans for each one of those games. Football is coming home, you might say.
The British government says that Wembley Stadium can host more than 60,000 fans for the semi-finals and final of Euro 2020. The new levels mean the stadium will be at 75% capacity for the final 3 games, which come to an end with the final on July 11th. All ticket holders will need to have either a negative COVID-19 test or proof of full vaccination. That means they must have 2 doses received 14 days before the match. The announcement came after Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi called for the final to be moved from London to Rome because of the rising COVID-19 cases in England. UEFA President Alexander Ceferin welcomed the increased capacity and thanked the UK government for the move. UEFA has been negotiating with the UK government about relaxing quarantine restrictions on overseas fans travelling to London for games, but there was no mention of any change in the statement. Currently, COVID-19 regulations require visitors from most European countries to quarantine for 10 days after arriving in the UK.
Moving from Euro 2020 to the Olympics now, and with the July the 23rd opening ceremony of the Tokyo Games nearing fast, organisers are scrambling to finalise preparations and win over a sceptical public, pledging that the Games will be safe for locals and participants. Organisers say they have put in place several measures which may dampen spirits, but will keep the virus, they say, at bay.
The clock is ticking. The stage is set for the biggest sporting event on the planet. Billions of dollars in aspirations are at stake. But the clouds of uncertainty are still hovering over the Games. With a month to go, Tokyo Olympic organizers unveiled tough new measures for spectators at the pandemic Games. No alcohol, no autographs, no cheers and no hugs.
In order to prevent the spread of infections, the committee decided to ban selling and drinking alcohol inside competition venues. Restricting the flow of people and suppressing festive mood have become a major challenge.
Games chiefs decided to allow up to 10,000 spectators into competition venues, but warned the sports lovers not to expect the kind of festive mood currently enjoyed by football fans at Euro 2020.
I do not think it will be like how it is in Europe, where venues are filled with celebration.
Despite the unprecedented measures, the Japanese remain apprehensive.
Honestly speaking, under this COVID pandemic, I am scared of clusters from people's gatherings. I personally think the number doesn't matter. I think having no spectators is better.
I think the government is thinking about the economy. So I think the decision was made based on the economic impact. But I have a relative who is a medical worker and under a very difficult situation. So the fact that the top medical workers' advice, which was to hold their games with no spectators, was not considered, was personally very unfortunate.
Japan's push to hold the multi-billion-dollar sports extravaganza, despite public opposition and deep concern about a resurgence in infections, has left the nation divided. Bureau Report WION, World is One.
Over 30 websites controlled by the Iranian government have been seized by the Biden administration. The United States says the action was taken to control the spread of misinformation. Tehran has now warned Washington of international and legal action and says the US action is not constructive for ongoing talks on the nuclear deal.
The standoff between the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran is only escalating. Within days of Iran's new president, Ibrahim Raisi, winning elections, the Biden administration has made its stand clear. Washington has seized 33 media websites controlled by the Iranian government, and some by Iraqi group Kataib Hezbollah, which Washington says is a hardline military faction. The United States says the websites were hosted on US-owned domains, in violation of the sanctions in place. The list of 33 websites also includes Press TV, Iran's main English-language broadcaster, Al-Alam, Arabic-language broadcaster, Al-Masira, channel of Yemeni Houthis, and Bahrain's Lualua TV. The United States has accused all these websites of spreading misinformation. Several of the sites were back online within hours with new domain addresses. Tehran has hit back at Washington, warning of international and legal action, and has accused the US of repressing freedom of expression. The Islamic Republic also threatened, saying that the US seizure of websites was not constructive for ongoing talks on the nuclear deal.
We are using all international and legal means to act accordingly, to condemn this action and to expose to the public this mistaken policy of the United States, which appears not constructive when talks for a deal on the nuclear issue are underway.
This turn step by the Biden administration comes at a time when talks to bring Washington back into the 2015 nuclear agreement between Tehran and 6 global powers are reportedly making headway. In 2018, the then US President Donald Trump had withdrawn from the agreement. When Joe Biden took office, he committed to rejoining the agreement. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
A Swedish court has struck down a plea from Chinese telecoms giant Huawei, which challenged the banning of its equipment in the Swedish tender for its 5G rollout. The administrative court in Stockholm ruled that the decision of the Swedish Telecoms Authority was legal. Earlier, the Swedish Telecoms Authority, PTS, had imposed a ban on the use of equipment from Chinese companies Huawei and ZTE. What's more, the equipment already installed must also be removed by January the 1st, 2025. After the UK in the summer of 2020, Sweden became the second country in Europe and the first in the EU to explicitly ban Huawei from almost all of the network infrastructure needed to run its 5G rollout. Swedish judge Ulrika Mellin said in a statement, "Sweden's security is an important reason, and the administrative court has considered that it's only the security police and the military that together have a full picture when it comes to the security situation and threats against Sweden." End quote. Huawei has denounced the ruling, but has not yet said whether it will appeal. The Chinese telecom company Huawei will now evaluate the decision and see what kind of actions, if any, they can take. Beijing had warned that the decision to ban Huawei by Sweden could have consequences for the Scandinavian countries' companies in China, prompting Swedish telecom giant and Huawei competitor Ericsson to be concerned about retaliation. Meghan Markle and Buckingham Palace could be headed for a new showdown. It's reported the Duchess of Sussex has demanded a point-by-point breakdown of allegations against her about bullying of staff. Sources suggest Meghan has not been questioned yet over claims of a toxic work environment during her time at Kensington Palace. 2 senior staff members have alleged that Meghan bullied them. This was during her time as a working royal, which has now come to an end. As per reports in the British media, at least 10 of Meghan's ex-staff members will assist the independent probe into these claims. An independent law assesses the working practices of the palace. It was supposed to publish its findings, Robert Lacey, in a book, Battle of Brothers, claimed that Prince William decided to separate his family from Lacey. Meghan apparently snapped at senior staff, saying it's not her model people when confronted over her inappropriate. Lacey says that Meghan more often than not left her staff in tears with her behaviour. Royal sources say these episodes is still ongoing. Buckingham Palace has previously said that it's concerned by the allegations and will conduct a thorough probe into them. It also said at the time that it will not tolerate any form of bullying or harassment. Meghan's The St. Louis Jazz Festival of Senegal, which is also the biggest jazz festival in the whole of Africa, is back after a gap of a year. It's been the perfect occasion to beat the pandemic blues for both the audience and the performers.
For French Senegalese blues singer Olly, it's good to be back. Since the early 1990s, Senegal's St. Louis has hosted a popular jazz festival, billed as the biggest in Africa. But last year, amid the global health crisis, it was cancelled for the first time in its history. At the weekend, African rhythms, funk, gospel and blues returned.
I was relieved and everybody was relieved too. And it was a beautiful energy, a beautiful vibration, a beautiful link also between the stage and the audience.
The island of St. Louis is a UNESCO with its colonial architecture and pastel-coloured houses. The music emanating from bars, restaurants and hotels was a welcome injection of life to the land of tourists. Street musician Adama Ndao says last year's cancellation.
Last year, there was no jazz. Because jazz attracted a lot of tourists, we could play in the streets, so we managed to collect a little money. There was nothing the last year. Today, it's good.
The festival has struggled with dwindling attendance since its days hosting headliners like American pianist Herbie Hancock, who played there in 1996. But it remains a draw for enthusiasts from West Africa and Europe. And for the performers, from the stage to the streets, the return of the festival is music to their ears.
That's all we have time for on this edition of WION Live Broadcast, which we've brought to you from London. Thank you for watching. More global news and updates will keep on coming on WION. World is One.
This is right, Arab.